How did ancient people use living oysters to build the world's first sea-crossing bridge? Before the bridge was completed, people could only cross the river by boat. But this was an estuary where tides were violent, winds were strong, and waves were fierce. Countless people lost their lives here. Determined to solve this, you decisively began building a stone bridge in the river to connect the two banks. However, you soon discovered that the riverbed was far too soft. Not long after the piers were completed, they began to tilt and collapse. You tried reinforcing the riverbed using traditional piling techniques, only to find that the silt layer at the bottom was as thick as 10 meters. Wooden piles simply could not be driven in. Even if ordinary wooden piles were forced into place, long-term water erosion would scour away the surrounding sediment, eventually causing the piles to loosen, snap, or even float up to the surface. So you came up with a clever idea. First, you loaded stones onto wooden boats. Then, taking advantage of the rising tide, you rowed along the bridge's axis and sank tens of thousands of stones into the water, forming a massive stone embankment more than 500 meters long. This embankment dispersed the force of the current and, under constant water pressure, became tighter and more compact over time. This was the world's first floating stone foundation. Next, you stacked carefully chiseled stone blocks layer by layer in a staggered pattern on top of the stone embankment, building square bridge piers. But soon another problem appeared. The square piers had overly wide faces against the current, blocking tidal flow and making them easy to destroy. To fix this, you added boat-shaped cutwaters to the upstream side of each pier. When the tide came in, the water was split into two streams, greatly reducing the impact on the piers. Even so, long-term erosion could still loosen their structure. To solve this final challenge, you devised an extraordinary solution. You cultivated oysters, living shellfish, inside the gaps between the stones of the piers. Oysters reproduce quickly and secrete a natural gelatinous substance that firmly bonds neighboring stones together. Over time, this bond only grows stronger, as if the piers were coated with a layer of living cement. This technique became known as gravity-locked construction. With the piers stabilized, the bridge deck became the next challenge. Located at an estuary with fast-moving water, ordinary timber and stone slabs simply couldn't withstand the current, so you transported stone beams weighing up to 10 tons. During high tide, wooden boats carried the beams above the piers. When the tide receded, the boats sank lower, leaving the stone beams perfectly positioned atop the piers. This was the earliest form of the floating transportation beam erection method. As a result, the bridge gained a solid stone deck, and the heavy beams further compressed the piers and stone foundation, making the entire structure even more stable. And so, congratulations, you invented Luoyang Bridge, one of China's 4 great ancient bridges. By ingeniously applying biology to bridge construction, it became the world's oldest surviving sea-crossing beam-type stone bridge, earning it the title the first bridge under